You are able to.
A warm good evening to one and all present here. I'm glad to welcome you all for this TDS provisions and TCS provisions. And today's speaker is a stalwart in direct tax, Naveen Kariwal sir. I welcome you, sir. We are very happy to listen to you and we are waiting for you, sir. And I welcome the Pondicherry branch chairman, Prabhakaran sir, and the Vellore branch chairman, Rajashekharan sir. Those two branches are always with us, and we are doing many joint programs. And thank you for your support, sir. And I welcome all the members for this program. Thank you, one and all. Be safe, be healthy. Thank you. And I now request Rajashekharan sir to introduce the speaker.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam. Shall I start?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Our today's speaker, CA Naveen Kariwal ji, is a well-known and a renowned speaker. Though he does not require any introduction, as a recall, I would like to introduce him among our members. I am very proud to introduce such a highly qualified and well-experienced member of our prestigious institute. He comes from a family of chartered accountants. His grandfather, father, and brother are chartered accountants. He is a BCom graduate and a fellow member of our institute. He is a partner in Mrs. H.C. Kincha & Co. and Mrs. H.C. Kincha Associates, Bangalore, with a specialization in direct taxes. He is a co-opted member of the Direct Taxes Committee of ICAI, New Delhi, for the year 2021, and a member of the Central Taxes, Corporate Taxes, and the GST Committee of Federation of Karnataka Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Bengaluru. He also served as a member of various committees constituted by various branches and regional councils of ICAI. He has given speeches at seminars organized by various branches of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and also gave presentations at various prestigious forums throughout India. He is not only a highly qualified and experienced chartered accountant, but also a good cricketer. He represented his college in the university matches and played a league registered with the Karnataka Cricket Association and represented Bangalore branch of SIRC of ICAI at various tournaments at national level. With this, I welcome our today's speaker, CA Naveen Kariwal ji.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I shall begin, sir.
Yeah, please, sir. Please.
Yes, sir.
With the permission of all three chairmen, let me begin my deliberation on the TDS under 194Q, 206AB and 206AB. Now, what made the government of India to introduce TDS on purchases? For the very first time, my dear members, for the very first time in the history of income tax, TDS is introduced on purchases. Last year, TDS was introduced on sales with 1st of October 2020, 206C, 1H on the seller. If the turnover of the seller was more than 10 crores in the preceding previous year, and in the next financial year, the purchases, the seller sales were more than 50 lakhs, then he could collect 0.1% TCS. Ditto provisions, similar provisions are now introduced in the statute under 194Q of the Act, which is applicable with effect from 1st of July 2021. Now, they already introduced this TCS on seller. What was the need to introduce TDS even on the buyer now? The buyer, TDS 194Q, seller 206C1H, 0.1%. The rate is same, my dear friends. The people of India, the taxpayers of India forced the government to introduce these provisions. These provisions, don't worry, you think the government wants 0.1% TDS, 0.1% TCS? Absolutely no. Take 194 and withdrawal on cash. Your withdrawal of cash from bank account, current account, SB account, post office, cooperative bank, etc. Government is telling on withdrawal, if last 3 years returns you have not filed, my dear folks, the government is telling last 3 years returns you have not filed, Then on withdrawal from bank, they are giving two limits, up to 20 lakhs and more than 20 lakhs, and up to 1 crore, more than 1 crore. It is 1%, etc. So there is no income element. Anyway, Calcutta High Court decision has come 194 in recently. But anyway, why are these provisions introduced? These provisions are introduced, my dear friends, to increase tax compliance. Hardly if you see the new portal, and whenever I could access this, whenever I could log in, I could see just 9.48 crores registered individual PAN numbers all across India. Out of a population of 140 crores, you have only 10 crore PAN of individuals registered. That is why the government is now enforcing strictly tax compliance. They are not interested in a 0.1%. They are telling file the returns, declare income, pay the taxes. So with this introduction, with this brief background, let me start my, PPT. Now, we will try to, keep it as practical as possible, and then we will take all the questions, don't worry. So let me start with the presentation. Now, this is the bare reproduction of the section, 194Q. What I have done is, I have prepared some FAQs, probably 60 FAQs. All three sections together, I think it is around about 60 plus FAQs, so that we will try to cover, all the intricacies, all the issues, etc. In any case, if there are any other issues, any other questions, we will take it at the end, not to worry. Now, please understand, let me go through the bare provision of the Act. And then we will discuss threadbare entire section as well as all the FAQs in a very simple manner. My dear friends, let me start the section 194Q. The question people are asking me, Q 194Q. Q chahiye 194Q. Q 194Q. I explained to you the brief background. Government is not interested in 0.1%. They want tax compliance. They want the people to file their returns, and they want them to pay their taxes. Now, how the section starts, my dear friends? What is the heading of the section? Deduction of tax at source on payment of certain sum. Please understand, the word used is certain sum. It is not telling income. It is only telling certain sum for purchase of goods. Now, goods is defined in Central Sales Tax Act 2017, Sale of Goods Act 1930, Constitution of India under clause 366(12). We will go through at the appropriate time. What is the definition and meaning of goods? Because you are telling deduct TDS on goods. Next, what is subsection 1? It is telling any person being a buyer who is responsible for paying any sum to any resident. Very, very simple. Any person being a buyer. Who is the guy who has to deduct TDS? He is only a buyer. Who is a buyer? Any damn person on this earth under the Income Tax Act, be it an individual, HUF, firm, AOP, BOI, your artificial juridical person, including all charitable registered trusts, etc., cooperative societies, etc. For paying any sum to any resident, it is saying paying any sum. It is any sum, not only the income embedded in the sum, to any resident only. Please understand, the seller should be strictly a resident seller in India. Section is crystal clear. Subsection 1, any person being a buyer, paying any sum for purchase of goods to any resident. So resident, seller. Next, for what? For purchase of goods of the value or aggregate of value exceeding 50 lakh rupees in any previous year. Very simple. 50 lakh rupees per seller per annum. Every year for seller per annum. Shall at the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier. Please understand, very important here is, shall at the time of credit of such sum to the account of seller or at the time of payment thereof by any mode. How beautiful it is. What do you mean by any mode? Credit or payment, it is embedded in all TDS sections of the Act. Credit or payment, whichever is earlier, thereof by any mode. That hints, there is a subtle hint there. Any mode will include even payments in kind. Even payments in kind will be subject to TDS in my humble opinion here. Whichever is earlier. Deduct the amount equal to 0.1 sum of such, sum exceeding 50 lakh rupees as income tax. Then in the explanation, they are giving the meaning of buyer. So who is this guy who's called a buyer? In the preceding previous year, sales, gross receipts or turnover from business. Please understand the words sales, gross receipts or turnover from business. Now, Mr. Prabhakaran is having a hardware stores. He's also a qualified chartered accountant. He's practicing chartered accountant. His receipts from profession is say 6 crores, and his sales from business hardware stores is 5 crores. 6 plus 5, 11 crores in the preceding previous year. Now the law is telling who is a buyer means a person whose total sales, gross receipts, turnover from business. Please understand. Now Prabhakaran goes to a jewelry shop. He purchases a item of jewelry worth 51 lakhs. He wants to gift it to his wife on his marriage anniversary. Now 51 lakhs. Please understand that jewelry is not connected with his business or profession. Yet Mr. Prabhakaran will have to deduct TDS under 194Q because in the previous year his turnover, gross receipts, total sales. But law goes further and says from the business only. But I am clubbing business plus profession, and I am taking a conservative view. I am taking a conservative view because the law is using the word gross receipts. Therefore, gross receipts is business plus profession, and you are entitled to take a view. I am taking a conservative view because it is only hardly 0.1%. So 51 lakhs I have purchased jewelry. 51 minus 50 into 0.1%. So be careful, my dear friends. The word used buyer is a person who sells gross receipts, turnover from the business carried on by him exceed 10 crore rupees during the financial year. Anyway, we can take another view is it's only from business, it's not from profession also. Absolutely, there is no problem. Then, in which the year in which purchase of goods is carried out, not being a person as the central government may by notification official gazette specify for this purpose, subject to such conditions as may be specified. We will go to that circular also. Subsection 2 is, wherever, even if you are credited in an account called suspense account, yet they are telling you will have to deduct. You will have to deduct. It will be deemed to be the credit to the income of account of payee. All this jugglery are tried by all the associates, chartered accountants, tax consultants, etc. We will just put it to suspense account. All this, jugglery, all these adjustments will not help now. They are telling even if you title the account as suspense account, you shall be deemed to, it will be deemed to the credit of such income to the account of payee. Next, subsection 3 is telling any difficulty arises to give effect of the provisions. Board, with the previous approval of central government, will issue guidelines for removing such difficulty. Subsection 4 is telling all such guidelines issued by the board, meaning to say by Central Board of Direct Taxes, shall be laid down before both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and it will all be binding on the authorities as well as the person liable to tax. Subsection 5, very important, it says Q, 194Q shall not apply to a transaction on which tax is deductible under any other provisions of this Act. And also tax is collectible under 206C other than a transaction to which 206C 1H applies. Fair enough. This is the explanatory memorandum. If you take the explanatory memorandum, what is it telling? If you see, they are telling rate of TDS is kept at very low at 0.1%. To ensure compliance burden is only on those who can comply with it. It is proposed that the tax is only required to be deducted by those person, that is a buyer, who sales gross receipts turnover from business carried on exceed 10 crore rupees. Now the whole idea is, the person is having more than 10 crore sales. I think that person will always, necessarily, mandatorily, regularly, consistently be filing his TDS returns. Definitely your turnover is more than 10 crores. So that person, in my opinion, has to be compliant. And plus the government, on the portal, already this GST turnover as per GST, sales as per GST, purchase as per GST is already there. So, this is one other feature and one other section introduced in the Act. Because the government, if they wanted this tax compliance, the GST portal, GST sales and purchase already reflecting income tax portal. Plus there are high value transactions, high value financial transactions, compliance portal already, even there also your sales and purchase are reflected. But and also the person having turnover more than 10 crores would normally be a person who would fulfill all the criteria of the Act. But anyway, this is what is written in the memorandum. Now when we move further, as I told you, I have made 61 Q&As. So we will discuss with the 61 Q&As quickly. These are all based on the bare sections and the circulars which have come out on 25th of June as well as on 30th of June. Now the first question, from which date is 194Q applicable? It is applicable with effect from 1st of July 21, and rate of deduction is 0.1% on purchase of goods of more than 50 lakhs from a resident seller. What is the timing of tax? Your timing, time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier. That means very important, TDS liability arise even if the buyer makes advance payment for purchase of goods. For example, Mr. Prabhakaran, you wants to make a payment of 1 crore. 1 crore, he makes a payment to the jeweler. 1 crore. Bill is not raised by the jeweler. Bill is not raised by the jeweler. He has made only advance payment after 1st of July. If he makes that advance payment before 1st of July, don't worry. Credit or payment whichever is earlier. So 1 crore already it is before 1st of July advance given. He need not deduct TDS. Now he is making a payment after 1st of July, that too as an advance. Bill will be raised by the seller, say in October or August. Say in August, he will raise the bill. Now he has only given an advance. Law is telling credit or payment whichever is earlier, and you'll have to deduct the TDS on the advance payment also. Don't tell me about the GST in that advance, because in the advance, where is the question of GST 12%, 5%, 18%, etc.? It is still in nature of advance. So we don't know, GST bill is not raised. I don't know how much is the GST in that advance portion. Therefore, on the entire advance portion, I'll have to deduct TDS and then remit it to the jeweler. Now, this what was the question, whether TDS has to be deducted on advance payment made to seller. We discussed that. So what is the difference between sum? You are paying a sum now. I told you. What is the section telling? Sum for purchase of goods. Is there a difference between sum for purchase of goods and sum for goods purchased? Sum for purchase of goods and sum for goods purchased. So what is the meaning is, the latter expression would mean payment for completed purchase of goods. Sum for purchase of goods is the transaction is complete, whereas purchases is completed by delivery of goods by the seller. Accordingly, advance payment is clearly sum for purchase of goods, as purpose of payment is to purchase goods and adjust the advance against amount payable for such purchase. Therefore, advance or payment of goods will also attract TDS. I will share the PPT also, don't worry, with the chairman later. Now,
Thank you.
whether tax is to be deducted on advance payment, this is para 4.6 as it is reproduced from the circular, my dear friends. This is taken by the circular. Now, is the circular binding? I would have felt happy. I would have been happier if the government had, issued a notification rather than a circular, or they would have, modified the act itself, amended the act itself, introduced in the act. Anyway, it will shortly come. But anyway, circular is binding on the assessing officer, and circular is also beneficial to us. Anyway, so para 4.6 of the circular is telling whether tax is required to be deducted on advance payment. So 4.6.1 is telling, yes, it shall apply to advance payment made by buyer. It is therefore clarified that since the provisions apply on payment or credit, whichever is earlier, provisions of section 194Q shall apply to advance payment made by the buyer to seller. Next question is, who are the buyers who are covered by 194Q? We discussed. Who is the buyer here? Buyer means a person whose total sales, turnover, gross receipts from a business carried on by him exceed 10 crore rupees during the financial year, immediately preceding the financial year, in which purchase of goods is carried out. And buyer can be any person, namely individual, HUF, firm, LLP, company, AOP, BOI, artificial juridical person, cooperative society, etc. Next. Now, whether a non-resident buyer is also liable for deduction of tax under this provision. Now, let us, analyze the situation. Whether non-resident buyer is also liable for deduction of tax under this provision. So, CBDT has issued a circular. What 194Q says? It only says buyer whose total sales, gross receipts or turnover from a business carried on by him during the financial year, immediately preceding the financial year, in which purchase of goods is carried out, exceed 10 crores. Section never tells whether that buyer is resident or non-resident. But the CBDT has now clarified this point in the circular, saying that 194Q shall not apply to a non-resident whose purchase of goods is not effectively connected with a permanent establishment in India. That means permanent establishment will include a fixed place of business through which business of the enterprise is wholly or partly carried on. If that non-resident, what the section is telling, sum and substance, if that non-resident buyer has a permanent establishment in India, then he will come under the ambit of this provision. This is clarified by para 4.4 of the circular, board circular, what it says. It is clearly telling that para 4.4.1, it is telling provisions of 194Q shall not apply to a non-resident whose purchase of goods from seller resident in India is not effectively connected with the PE of such non-resident in India. That means if it is connected to the PE, then you please deduct tax. So we saw the meaning of the PE. It shall mean to include a fixed place of business through which the business of the enterprise is wholly or partly carried on. Now, question number 6, whether the TDS is deductible in the year of incorporation. Now, very simple, sir. Now, buyer, started the business, say on 1st of January 2021. Now, you are standing today, 1st of January 2021. He incorporated the business. Or let us say today, the business is, started today in the year of incorporation. That is the example. Yeah. So, when he starts today, suppose, he makes a payment, he makes a purchases for 25 crores. The first payment itself makes a payment of 25 crores. But last year he had no business. So last year, therefore, there is no business, no turnover, no gross receipts from the business carried on by him. And there's no question when there is no business, how can the turnover be more than 10 crores? So therefore, in the first year of incorporation, the provisions of 194Q will not impact and buyer, will not be, mandatory on the buyer. Because the condition is not satisfied. Which condition? That in the preceding financial year, turnover, sales or gross receipts from the business carried on by the buyer should be more than 10 crore rupees. Next. Is a buyer importing goods from outside of India required to deduct TDS under this provision? Now again, buyer importing goods from outside India, that means what? Seller is non-resident, buyer is in India, so buyer is importing goods. Therefore, as in the case of import, seller is a non-resident, seller has to be a resident. The buyer will not have any obligation to deduct tax under this provision. However, there may be a possibility of levying TDS under 195 or even equalization levy in respect of such a transaction. As far as 194Q is concerned, you need not worry, because the buyer, although is a resident, seller is a non-resident. Now, whether a tax is required to be deducted under section 194Q from the goods exported abroad. Now, liability to deduct tax under this provision will arise only when the payment is made to a resident seller. As in the transaction of export of goods, the seller is a resident, but the buyer is a non-resident. Next. Who are the seller who are covered under 194Q? So very simple, sir. Any resident. Buyer, seller means any resident from whom any goods of value or aggregate of such value exceeding rupees 50 lakhs are purchased during the previous year. So such seller shall be covered irrespective of whether or not is a seller within the meaning of 206C(1)(h). Suppose the seller is a seller within the meaning of 206C(1)(h) also, because the seller's turnover also in the preceding year more than 10 crores, during their more than 50 lakhs. Buyer also in the preceding year, more than 10 crores turnover, during their more than 50 lakhs transaction. Then now, whether tax is required to be deducted, where the income of the seller is exempt from tax. Very, very important. This is given in the circular para 4.5. Understand carefully. Whether tax is required to be deducted where the income of the seller is exempt from tax. Now, the circular has clarified by saying that provisions of the Q of the Act shall not apply on purchase of goods from person being a seller, because he has made buyer's turnover in the preceding year more than 10 crores, sir. During their more than 50 lakhs purchases, but the income of the seller is exempt under section 10. Entire section 10 is covered, my dear friends. Entire section 10. So all the provisions of section 10(1), 10(2), 10(3), 10(4), etc., agriculture income, etc. If the entire income of the seller is exempt, then the buyer will need not deduct tax. Please understand. Clarified that the 194Q of the Act shall not apply on purchase of goods from person being a seller who as a person is exempt from income tax under the Act, like any person exempt under section 10 or under any other Act passed by the Parliament, etc. Like your RBI. This is crystal clear provisions. Similarly, with respect to 206C(1)(h) also, in the same para 4.5.2, the 4.5.1, as I told you, it is for the, for 4.5.2 with respect to 206C(1)(h). So here also it is clarified that the provisions of the subsection shall not apply to sale of goods to a person being a buyer who as a person is exempt from income tax under the act. Same thing, like a person exempt under section 10 or under any other act passed by parliament like RBI, etc. Now, para 4.5.3, very, very important. Please understand. Don't be happy, income of the seller is exempt or income of the buyer is exempt. Therefore, 260(1)(h) will not apply. Here 194(q) will not apply. Now, para 4.5.3 says above clarifications will not apply if only part of the income of the person, that is, you are either a seller or buyer, is exempt. Entire income should be exempt. If only part of the income is exempt, you would as well deduct TDS. Better that the buyer deduct TDS. Better for the seller to collect TCS if they are, fulfilling the other conditions of 260(1)(h) or 194(q), as the case may be. Now, whether the seller has to obtain self-declaration from the buyer. Now, where the seller whose turnover exceeds 10 crores, I told you. Now, what is the confusion here? The buyer's turnover is also more than 10 crores. Seller turnover is also more than 10 crores. During their transaction is more than 50 lakhs. 194(q) will take precedence, is more important as regards to or vis-a-vis 260(1)(h). Now, the question therefore is, how do I know when this fellow is deducting TDS, one buyer, how does he know that this seller will not deduct TCS, will not collect TCS? Therefore, they are telling whether seller has to obtain self-declaration from buyer. Because seller whose turnover exceeds 10 crores, then is advisable that he may obtain a self-declaration from all its customers or buyer from whom receipt against sale of goods exceed 50 lakhs. Whether or not such buyer will deduct TDS under 194(q) or not. Else, because 194(q) is important as compared to 260(1)(h), therefore seller better to take a self-declaration saying that if you are deducting tax, I will not collect TCS. Now, what about this 194(q) where a turnover of 10 crores includes GST or not? So this is, all India, same confusion continues. Whether for the purpose of calculation of turnover of 10 crores, whether it includes GST or not. Now, what are we doing, sir, all over India? All the chartered accountants, all the SSCs, we are preparing trading, profit and loss account, income and expenditure account, etc., etc., all the balance sheets, company's balance sheet, all other balance sheets, tax audit balance sheets. How are we preparing, sir? Trading account. That turnover, we are preparing or we are following only exclusive method of accounting. Nobody in India, 99.99%, nobody will follow inclusive method of accounting. Although by law, under 145A, I am mandated to follow only inclusive method of accounting, but the guidance note, my institute guidance note says both are revenue neutral. I can follow inclusive or I can follow exclusive. So the question therefore is, when I follow an exclusive method of accounting, I have opened a separate account in my books for your VAT, your service tax, or now GST. Wherever GST is collected is credited, GST paid is debited. So therefore what happens? The separately, whatever only the net off only is knocked off. Only the net off is collected and submitted to, your debited to your profit and loss account. Now, therefore the question therefore is, whatever sales is there as per trading account, you are following exclusive method of accounting. So therefore the 10 crores will be excluding the amount of GST collected on sales. Now, total sales for financial year, take an example. Total sales for financial year 2021. I think, sir, you need to unmute all the participants. Some disturbance is coming.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Total sales for financial year 2021, excluding GST, is rupees 8.5 crores. $53 crores. Total amount inclusive of GST is 10.03 crores. That is 8.5 crores plus 1.53 crores. So 8.5 crores is the turnover. On that GST at 18% is 1.53 crores. So total amount is 10.03 crores. We discussed, sir. There should not be any doubt. Please clarify all the doubts and please, have no doubt at all. You have to advise the client accordingly. Else, I am telling you, if you take all this, adventurous views and, decide against collecting or deducting, government is telling do 260(1)(h) or even you do 194(q). We are not bothered. Both the places, rate is only 0.1%. If you don't do it, if you act adventurous or if you try to circumvent the law, what are the consequences? Let me tell you beforehand itself. 140A IA 30% will be disallowed. Number 2, the interest will be there if you don't deduct from the date of deducted till deductibility, deductible to deducted and deducted to payment. 1% per month plus 1.5% per month, 2011, 2011A till the date of payment of self-assessed tax under 140A. You cannot avoid that interest 2011 and 2011A. Then again 234E, the delay in filing TDS returns or don't filing TDS returns late, 200 rupees per day. 271C, as much as the amount of tax deducted or deductible penalties as much as the tax TDS amount itself. Then 271H, penalty will be up to 1 lakh. So all these penalties are there, all these interests are there. Be careful, that's why. Now, anyway, see this example. So it is 8.5 crores plus GST at 18% is 1.5 crores. Total is 10.03 crores. Not to worry, sir. I have to remove the GST component, then calculate the turnover, which is 8.5 crores. So therefore, there is no question. Turnover is 8.5 crores below the threshold limit of 10 crores. Now, this is the question or clarification given in our circular, sir. Whether provisions of 194Q will apply to a buyer if turnover from business is 10 crore or less. So if the turnover from business is 10 crore or less. So what they are telling? Sales or gross receipts or turnover from business carried on by him must exceed 10 crore. His turnover or receipts from non-business activity is not to be counted for this purpose. Please understand. While calculating turnover, the turnover, gross receipt, sales must be from the business. But when the buyer, whose turnover is more than 10 crores from business, makes a purchase, they are not telling that purchase only should be purpose of or in the course of carrying on a business. I can make even a personal purchase. Like I told you, Prabhakar is making a purchase of jewelry for his wife. Although his business is what? Take hardware stores. Purchase is not made for hardware stores. It's a personal purchase. So GST will be included in the bill. So therefore what will happen? He will not deduct. We will come to it further. He will not deduct TDS on the GST portion. He has to deduct TDS only on the purchase consideration. Anyway, because the law is crystal clear, turnover or receipts from non-business activity is not to be counted for this purpose. But when he makes purchase of jewelry, please understand, peculiar case, peculiar issue. You may forget to advise the client, or inadvertently client will also not deduct TDS. Anyway, that jewelry also, whatever he purchases, he will debit to his capital account. He will not claim as an expenditure. Next, whether TDS is to be deducted on the total invoice value, including the GST. There was a circular also telling that without including GST, you have to deduct the tax. The CBDT has also clarified. Earlier, it was only in context of services 194J. So now they are telling the same thing, same provisions will apply now. Circular is telling if the following conditions are satisfied, TDS is deducted at the time of credit of amount in the account of the seller. A component of GST comprised in the amount payable to the seller is indicated separately as per the terms of the agreement or contract between the buyer and seller. GST is mentioned separately either in the invoice or they are telling as per the terms of agreement or contract between buyer and seller. However, if the tax is deducted on a payment basis, because the payment is made before credit, I told you, he purchased jewelry, for example, or he purchased hardware only, he gave advance of 1 crore. And it is not mentioned because when you give advance, you don't know what is the rate of GST because it is not billed by the seller. At that time, my dear friend, there is no question of GST. Therefore, on the entire advance, you have to deduct TDS. Now, in this case, it's telling if it is separately indicated in the invoice or as per the terms of agreement or as per the contract between the buyer and seller, amount of GST is indicated separately. Please do not deduct TDS on the GST amount included in the sales. Next. Now, what about very interesting? So, GST we understood. What about purchase returns? So, very, very interesting. If you take this GST first, clearly they are telling in case of 206C1H, the government is telling we issued circular number 17 of 2020 dated 29th of September 2020. There, the government made it clear that no adjustment on account of GST will be required to be made for collection of tax under 206C1H. Why? Because the collection was made with reference to receipt of amount of sale consideration. However, situation is different so far as TDS is concerned. It has been clarified in circular number 23 of 2017 dated 19th of July 17 as under. That was I told you in respect of your 194J, etc. Wherever in terms of agreement or contract between the payer and the payee, component of GST on sendis comprised in the amount payable to a resident is indicated separately, tax shall be deducted at source under 17B of the Act on the amount paid or payable without including such GST on services component. GST for this purpose shall include IGST, CGST, SGST, and UTGST. Accordingly, para 4.3.2 is now clarified that the component of GST comprised in the amount payable to the seller, if it is indicated separately, then tax is deducted on payment basis. If the payment is earlier than credit, tax will be deducted on the whole amount, as it is not possible to identify that payment with GST component of amount to be invoiced in future that is on advance. Now, what about purchase returns? Very, very interesting. Now, for example, say Mr. A made a purchase of say 50 lakhs from a seller, and he say 60 lakhs. So 60 minus 50 on 10 lakhs, he deducted TDS. Now tomorrow there is a purchase return. So Mr. A is returning 25 lakhs. Now what to do? Whether we have to do reversal? No, sir. Law is telling, circular is telling, don't worry. You have done a purchase on 25 lakhs. If you are able to take the same quantity, the same goods 25 lakhs, then don't worry, you need not do any reversal. There is a purchase on 25 lakhs, again you take back 25 lakhs. Exact same purchase, similar quantity. Or they are telling, you please adjust it in the next bill. You please adjust that same purchase amount, your same purchases, you adjust in the next bill. Then also you need not make any adjustment here. So what are they telling? If against this purchase return money is refunded by the seller, then this tax deducted may be adjusted against the next purchase against the same seller. So no adjustment is required if the purchase return is replaced by the goods by the seller, as in that case the purchase on which tax was deducted on 194Q has been completed with the goods replaced. Next, if you see here again, what are they telling? Before the purchase return happens, I make the purchases. No, even before the purchase returns happens, credit or payment, whichever is earlier. So I make the purchases, raise the bill, credit or payment, whichever is earlier. Immediately I would have deducted 194Q. So if that is the case, against this purchase return, now I made purchase return and money is refunded by the seller, then this tax deducted may be adjusted against the next purchase against the same seller. Or they are telling no adjustment is also required if the purchase return is replaced by the goods by the seller, as in that case the purchase on which tax has been deducted has already been completed with the goods replaced. Now, all important question, what is the meaning of goods? Now, the term goods I told you is not defined in the Income Tax Act. Term goods is a wide import. Anything which comes to the market for sale, it can be treated as goods. So goods is not defined in Income Tax Act. Therefore, now what should I do? I have to import its meaning from the other relevant acts and judicious pronouncement, maybe Supreme Court judgments. So therefore, goods is defined under Sale of Goods Act 1930, Central Goods and Services Tax Act 2017, Constitution of India. Now, what is the meaning under Sale of Goods Act as well as CGST? Which one to take? And Constitution of India 366(12) defines goods to include all materials, commodities, articles. Then again, Article 366(26)(a) defines the term services to mean anything other than goods. Now, Sale of Goods Act is a specific statute which deals with sale of goods, whereas your CGST Act 17, it was dealing only with the tax on supply of goods. Therefore, the definition of the term goods can be referred to from the Sale of Goods Act 1930 for purpose of 194Q. What is the meaning of goods as per Sale of Goods Act 1930? Goods mean every kind of movable property other than actionable claims and money. But it includes stocks and shares, growing crops, grass, and things attached to or forming part of the land, which are agreed to be severed before sale or under the contract of sale. Now, if you see the pronouncement made by Supreme Court also, they are discussing in this UI versus Delhi Cloth and General Mills, or D. Saxena and Balram Prasad Sharma, Supreme Court. Marketability, Supreme Court is telling, to become goods, an article must be something that can ordinarily come into the market to be bought and sold. Also in D. Saxena, they are telling the words goods are all saleable goods. Goods may be now Tata Consultancy Services, State of Andhra Pradesh, in context of VAT Act. Very important judgment is there. Goods may be tangible or intangible. In order to become goods, provided it has the attributes of having regard to utility, capable of being bought and sold, capable of being transmitted, transferred, delivered, stored, and possessed. So what are goods? Now we have just given the illustrative item: movable property, any commodity, shares or securities, electricity, agricultural produce, fuel, motor vehicle, liquor, jewelry, bullion, art, drawings, sculptures, scraps, forest produce, canned software, off-the-shelf computer software. See, all these are goods. Then we will see, some of the goods may be exempt also by virtue of that circular. So that we will see later, but all these are goods. Now, whether purchases includes purchases in kind under section 194Q. So the purchase is not defined, sir, in 194Q, nor the word purchase is defined in any of the definition clauses under section 2. Therefore, one will have to rely on the plain meaning, the dictionary meaning. So dictionary meaning, as per your IR's advanced law lexicon, it is giving the meaning of purchases. It's telling purchases connotes buying for a price or equivalent of price by payment in kind or adjustment towards an old debt or for monetary consideration. Now, please understand, above plain meaning fits well with the context of 194Q of the section, refers to paying any sum. Section says paying any sum for purchase of goods and then payment thereof by any mode. So important words are the time of payment thereof by any mode. Now you take, these three other sections. 194C, what is it telling? Payment in cash or by issue of a check or draft or by neither mode, whichever is earlier. 194J, payment in cash or by issue of a check or draft or by neither mode, whichever is earlier. Again, 194LA, payment in cash or by issue of a check or draft or by any other mode. Now compare this with, the wordings of C, 194C, 194J, 194LA with 194Q. So any other mode in the C, J, LA, it comes what? Any other mode comes after a listing of modes of payment in money and can be interpreted ejusdem generis as cash, check, draft, etc. Any other mode in these sections can't be interpreted as payment in kind. On the other hand, 194Q refers to payment by any mode. So therefore, it can be said that sections 194C, J, and LA contemplates payments in money only and not in kind, whereas Q contemplates payment of any mode even in kind. Now, how to determine the threshold limit of 50 lakhs? Now, buyer is liable to deduct TDS only if the purchases in the financial year exceed 50 lakhs. So therefore, the purchases or payments in respect of now financial year 21-22, the purchases or payments made before 1st of July, even if it exceeds 50 lakhs, shall not be liable to TDS under 194Q. But my dear friends, to calculate the threshold of 50 lakhs, purchases even before 1st of July 2021 shall be included to determine the applicability of TDS under section 194Q. We discussed that. So threshold of 50 lakhs is every year for every seller. Now, what is that telling? If you see, there is a clarification also given about the calculation of threshold limit, that the provision of this subsection shall not apply on any sum credited or paid before 1st of July 21. No problem. But if a person being a buyer has already credited or paid 50 lakh rupees or more up to 30th of June to a seller, TDS under section 194Q shall apply on all credit or payment during the previous year on or after 1st July. Why? Because already suppose if 3 crore purchases are made by a purchaser, from 1st of June till, 1st of April till 30th of June. Then any purchase made today, say 1st of July, even for 5,000 rupees, he has to deduct TDS. Why? Already has exhausted the limit of 50 lakhs. Now, is section 194Q applicable on purchase of capital goods? Yeah. Is section 194Q applicable on purchase of capital goods? My dear friends, 194Q will apply to all purchase of goods, whether on capital or on revenue account. Okay. Whether a transaction in securities through stock exchange shall be subject to TDS under this provision. So in 206C1H, what circular had come last year, number 17 of 2020, in 29 September of 2020, what it said under 206C1H, in relation to transaction securities and commodities, which are traded through recognized stock exchange, or cleared and settled by recognized clearing corporation, including recognized stock exchange or recognized clearing corporation located in IFSC, then the section 206C1H shall not be applicable. Ditto provision has been put in the circular for purchases under 194Q. Okay. So here, in the 30th June, whatever circular number 13 of 2021, which is in case of, 194Q, purchases in case of 194Q, ditto they are telling. I told you shares and absolutely shares is it is a good, sir. It is goods, but they are telling 194Q will not be applicable in relation to all the transactions, securities and commodities which are traded through recognized stock exchange, or it is cleared and settled by recognized clearing corporation, including recognized stock exchange or recognized clearing corporation located in IFSC, that is International Financial Services Center. Now, whether TDS is to be deducted on purchase of immovable property by developer. Sir, immovable property is not goods. And anyway, TDS is already deductible on the consideration paid for purchase of immovable property other than agriculture land under 194 IA. They are at 1%. So TDS is deductible on that provision if consideration is more than 50 lakh rupees. Now, whether TDS is required to be deducted on transaction in electricity. Long back, the apex court held in state of Andhra Pradesh versus NTPC that electricity is a mobile property, though it may not be tangible, and it is goods. Supreme Court has held that electricity will be a mobile property, though not tangible, it is still goods. Therefore, one could conclude from the Supreme Court decision that tax should be deducted from payment made in respect of transaction in electricity. Now, transaction in electricity may be undertaken either by way of direct purchase from the company which is engaged in generation of electricity or through your power exchanges. So, in context of 206C1H, CBDT clarified in circular number 17 of 2020 that the transaction in electricity, renewable energy certificates and energy saving certificates traded through power exchanges registered under Rule 20 of CERC shall be out of the scope of TCS under provisions of 206C1H. Ditto provision has been put in this circular also, sir. That is for your purchase of 194Q. Now, in respect of direct purchase from generating company, TDS will be deductible under 194Q. You see para 4.1 clearly the same thing they are telling. Transaction in electricity, renewable energy certificate, energy saving certificate, traded through power exchanges, registered in accordance with regulation 21 of CERC. Provisions of 194Q will not be applicable. What about software? So long back, Supreme Court held in TCS, in state of Andhra Pradesh, 141 taxman 132 that canned software, off-the-shelf computer software are goods and as such are accessible to sales tax in the context of Sales Tax Act. Therefore, requirement to deduct TDS shall be decided based on whether purchase of software has been treated as purchase of goods or purchase of service. If it is purchase of service, all of you know, it will not be liable for TDS or subject to TDS 194Q. But the provisions of 194J or 195 will apply, sir, as the case may be. If the purchase of software is treated as purchase of goods, then the buyer shall be liable to deduct TDS. Now, what about TDS is liable to be deducted on purchase of jewelry not connected with business? Inadvertently, even your personal jewelry, what you are purchasing for your wife, inadvertently you will have to deduct, sir. Why? Simple. What are the conditions? This buyer's turnover in the preceding financial year should be more than 10 crores and during their transaction should be more than 50 lakhs. The purchasers, there is no condition that purchasers should be connected with the business only. Purchasers, turnover of the buyer should be from business. What about purchases of the buyer? There is no such condition in the act. Neither is there any, answer in the circular also that the condition purchaser should be connected with the business only. Therefore, in my humble opinion, if a person is falling within the definition of buyer, tax will be required to be deducted even if such purchase is not connected with the business carried on by him. Jewelry being a mobile property is covered within the term goods. What about your additional out-of-pocket expenses? Whether it will form part of purchase value of goods. So if these expenses have been reflected in the purchase invoice itself, it will form part of purchase value and TDS will be deductible on the same. Suppose they are charged to a separate invoice and on actuals basis, then it should not form of purchase value for deduction of TDS and for computing the limit of 50 lakhs threshold limit. What about, whether the amount advanced as a loan to the seller shall come within the ambit of this provision. Very important. Loan is advanced by the amount is advanced as a loan to the seller, whether it shall come within the ambit of this provision. Now, loan advanced by buyer is not a payment towards purchase of goods. Hence, there is no requirement to deduct TDS on loan advanced by buyer. Please understand, Mr. Rajeshwaran, he gave advance for, purchase of hardware goods. He's a trader in hardware goods. He gave advance for, say, 50 lakh rupees. So he has given a loan. Loan advanced by Rajshekaran, buyer to seller is 50 lakhs. He gave a loan. Then they decided at a future date that loan amount you please settle against the purchase value. First I gave you a loan, but it is not a payment for purchase of goods. Then I decided, Rajshekaran decided, I will purchase goods from you. So what loan I had given, you adjusted against the purchase. So which date to deduct TDS? On the date when the loan amount is settled against the purchase value, liability to deduct TDS shall also arise. TDS shall be deducted on the date on which the parties agree to adjust the loan amount against the outstanding liability. Now, what about tax to be deducted on purchase of goods by one branch to another, sir? How can I deduct purchaser from myself, sir? If there is only one PAN, one TAM, branch transfer, I am not discussing about GST, sir. There GST will be there, one branch to other branch. But in Income Tax Act, one branch to other branch, how can I deduct TDS, same PAN, same TAM? So, there should be two distinct persons, sir. There should be a buyer, there should be a seller, branch to branch. There are no two distinct persons. So, existence of two distinct parties as seller and buyer is a prerequisite to construe a transaction as a purchase. So, therefore, condition of purchase is not fulfilled in the context of branch transfer. Therefore, provisions of 194Q will not apply. Now, what if the seller has multiple units? Whether purchases made from different units needs to be aggregated. Where the tax is required to be deducted at source, deductee is required to furnish his PAN or Aadhaar to the deductor, failing which tax is required to be deducted at higher rates, 206A, 20%, etc. Now, if the PAN or Aadhaar is available, the threshold limit of 50 lakhs shall be computed in respect of each PAN or Aadhaar. That means, if different units of the seller are under the same PAN, same Aadhaar, then the amount paid or payable to all such units shall be aggregated to compute the limit of 50 lakhs. Now, can the seller apply for lower deduction certificate, sir? Yes, no. Finance Act 2021 has not made any amendment to section 197 or 197A to extend the benefit to apply for a certificate for deduction of tax at lower rates or to file a declaration for nil deduction in respect of transactions covered under 194Q. Therefore, the seller does not have any option. I repeat, he has no option to approach the AO to either issue a certificate for lower tax deduction or to file a declaration for nil deduction in respect of transactions covered under 194Q, your 15G, 15H or your low deduction certificate. Nothing is there, sir, because no amendment is in 197 or 197A. Similarly, even in 206C1H also, it does not allow the buyer to apply for lower or nil TCS certificate. Now, will TDS under section 194Q apply to redemption of preference shares? So long back, preference shares are mobile property and goods. It was held in Anarkali Sarabhai in Supreme Court case that redemption of preference shares is clearly sale by the shareholder to the company and would come within the purview of transfer in view of the following. Erstwhile sections of Companies Act 1956, 77, 80, 85 and section 67, 55 and 43 of the Companies Act 13. It makes it crystal clear that when preference share is redeemed by a company, what a shareholder does is to sell the shares to a company. Such a transaction is nothing but the sale of preference shares by the shareholder to the company. Then, therefore, if the redemption proceeds to any preference shareholder, it exceeds 50 lakhs limit, TDS under 194Q would apply as it amounts to purchase of goods. Now, what about 194Q? Does it apply to buyback of shares by a company? Will such buyback amount apply to purchase of goods? Again, it would clearly amount to purchase of goods in view of Supreme Court decision Anarkali Sarabhai versus CIT 90 Taxman 509. Besides, your section 68 of Companies Act 13 refers it to as a purchases, as well as in the text of the provision, in the heading, as well as in the text of the provisions, it refers it to as a purchase only. But you know, buyback of shares by domestic companies are subject to 20% tax under 115 QA of the Income Tax Act. And because the company will already collect pay tax 20% buyback, the consideration will be exempt from tax in the hands of the shareholder on section 1034A. Therefore, it will be a case of fully tax-free income being subjected to TDS. Besides, 194 QA4 says that the tax paid by the company under that section shall be treated as final payment of tax in respect of distributed income on buyback of shares. In view of the above, it may appear that no tax on 194Q shall be deductible on buyback of shares. Now take this example, interesting example. Company whose turnover is 12 crores, in immediately preceding year, it buys 75 lakhs capital goods from a supplier. The agreement with the supplier is 1 lakh shares of the company whose fair market value is 75 lakhs shall be allotted to the supplier as a consideration. Is the TDS deductible under 194Q? Very, very interesting question. So company's turnover is 12 crores. Company buys capital goods worth 75 lakhs. So they are not getting money, they are not getting check. What are they getting? Company is telling, I will issue shares. I am buying goods, capital goods. I will issue shares whose fair market value of shares is 75 lakhs. Therefore, it's TDS deductible under 194Q. My dear friends, if you go by the plain meaning of purchase of goods, there is purchase of goods. And the word payment of thereof of any mode in that section, it does not exclude payment in kind. Therefore, issue of shares for consideration for capital goods is clearly a payment in kind and clearly payment thereof in any other mode. Therefore, TDS will have to be deducted at the time of credit of 75 lakhs to the supplier's account or at the time of payment thereof by any mode, that is mode of allotment of shares, whichever is earlier. See, all these, issues may arise practically. So accordingly, we'll have to advise the client. Time and again, repeatedly, I am telling you, all my professional colleagues, TDS, please take a very, very conservative view. Now, whether 194Q is applicable to barter or exchange of goods, it appears so. Why? Because that payment thereof in any mode is used in 194Q. What about loan of material? Will it apply? Now what happens? Example, a builder X will take building material on loan from builder Q. Builder X commits to replace to builder Q the quantity taken when his own stocks arrive. This is loan of material. So 194Q applies to purchase of goods and not loan of material. Now, what is the difference between loan of material as well as a barter? How does loan of material differ from a barter? In a barter system, it's not exactly the same item in same quantity that is given back. Whereas in loan of material, the same quantity of same material taken is given back. What about transfer of goods on testing purpose? Very, very interesting. See, all these are practical, issues. Transfer of goods on testing purpose. Where the question of have I bought the goods, sir? Goods are transferred only for the purpose of testing and there are no purchases made. Therefore, this provision will not apply. Will TDS under section 194Q apply to the redemption of units by mutual fund exceeding 50 lakhs in a financial year to unit holder? There is redemption of mutual fund units. Can it be said to be purchase of goods by mutual fund? So, Finance Act 2020, dividend distribution tax was abolished. Accordingly, 194K was inserted with effect from 1st April 20 to levy TDS at the rate of 10% on the dividend income paid by the company mutual fund to its share or unit holder if the amount of such dividend income exceeds 5,000 rupees in a financial year. Ultimately, when the law was passed, when Finance Act 2020 was passed, and then what happened, CBDT also clarified via a press release dated 4th of February that a mutual fund shall be required to deduct TDS at 10% only on dividend payment, and no tax shall be required to be deducted by the mutual fund on income which is in the nature of capital gains. Thus, section 194K as finally enacted clarifies that no TDS will be deductible by mutual fund on payment of income in the nature of capital gains. Because there is no amendment to section 194K by Finance Act 2021. so as to require deduction of TDS by mutual fund on deduction of units. Therefore, in my humble view, though units can be considered as goods, TDS under section 194Q will not be attracted on redemption of units by mutual fund. Very, very interesting, sir. One more very interesting example. ABC is a partnership firm. It invoiced goods worth 60 lakhs on 15 July 2021 to partner A's sole proprietary business. See, ABC, there are 3 partners in a firm. Now, ABC invoiced goods worth 60 lakhs on 15th July. It is after 1st of July. Yes, sir. And partnership firm is also a person, sir, is also a buyer to partner A's sole proprietary business A and company, and debited partner's capital account as drawings. Turnover of A and company, that is your partner's proprietor A partner A's proprietary concern, turnover A and company was 12 crores in the financial year 2021. So ABC and company turnover in the financial year 2021 was 70 crores. Is ABC and company liable to collect tax? See, ABC and company firm is the seller. Partner A, sole proprietor business A and company, is the purchaser. So partner purchased goods worth 60 lakhs from the firm. Turnover of ABC and company is 70 crores. Turnover of the partner is, they are telling it's 12 crores. And what is the goods purchased is 60 lakhs, which is debited to the partner's capital account in ABC and company. So the question therefore is, ABC and company, is it liable to collect tax at source under section 206C1H, and or is A and company liable to deduct TDS under 194Q? Now, what will happen? So A and company purchase of goods 194Q will be 194Q will be liable, sir. Why? Because turnover is more than 10 crores. What about 206CH? Firm is also bound to collect TCS under 206C1H. Turnover is more than 10 crores immediately preceding year. But if on a transaction TCS is required under 206C1H as well as TDS under 194Q, then on that transaction only TDS under this section, that is 194Q, will be carried out. Therefore, since both the provisions apply in the present situation, ABC and company will not collect TCS, and only A and company will deduct TDS under 194Q. Again, this interesting question developed further. Same, ABC and company is a firm. It is now settling retiring partner's account by transferring stock in trade of FMV of 60 lakhs on 15 July to the sole proprietary concern A and company. Turnover of A and company was 12 crores in financial year 2021. ABC and company turnover in financial year 2021 was 70 crores. Is ABC and company liable to collect tax at source under 206C1H? Is A and company liable to deduct TDS under section 194Q? So firm has given stock in trade to retiring partner to settle his capital account balance. It is clearly in connection with reconstitution of specified entity. Therefore, a deemed transfer under 9B newly inserted in the Act by Finance Act 2021. This would amount to a deemed sale by the firm and deemed purchase by A and company. Therefore, if on a transaction, but same thing will have to continue. If on a transaction TCS is also applicable and 206C1H, TDS is also applicable, then only TDS under this provision will be carried out. Therefore, purchase account will be debited, proprietor A's capital account will be credited by A and company. At this point of time, TDS of 0.1% would have to be deducted on 0.1% of 10 lakh rupees, assuming that A and company and ABC and company do not have any other purchase or sale dealings during the financial year. That is 60 minus 50 lakhs. 70 crores is the turnover, and there 12 crores is the turnover. That is why I told you 206C1H as well as 194Q is applicable. Transaction during there is 60 lakhs. Now, so A and company would need to deduct tax at source here at 0.1% of 60 lakhs. Next, how to deposit TDS? No, this is the same thing, sir. Deposit TDS, that deductor has to fill challan number ITNS 281. Other deductors can deposit tax deducted into any branch of the RBI or SBI or any authorized bank. What is the due date to deposit TDS? If it's a government, office of the government, without your challan on the same day on which tax is deducted. If it is your challan is ITNS 281, within 7 days from the end of the month. April means May 7th. May means your June 6th, June 7th, etc. So other deductor is with the income tax challan 281. You know that from April to February month, within 7 days from the end of the month in which tax deducted. For month of March, it is on or before April 30th. What is the rates of TDS applicable under 194Q? Rate of TDS applicable is 0.1%. So to this 0.1%, please note the following points. No question of adding surcharge, health and education cess. And also, I told you no question of there is no facility to obtain a certificate for nil deduction or low deduction of tax in respect of all payments covered on 184Q. Also, there is no question for non-deduction of tax based on a self-declaration of the payee in form of 15G or form 15H. If the deductee does not furnish PAN, rate of TDS shall be 5%, my dear friends. Now, what shall be the consequences for failure to deduct or pay TDS? I told you at the beginning itself. Now, if the buyer fails to deduct TDS under 194Q, 30% of such sum will be disallowed under 40A. 1 crore purchases are made. Say 10 crore purchases are made and the buyer is not deducted TDS. 3 crores will be disallowed, my dear friends. You know that form 34 ABC in your form 3CD. And the 10 crores purchases are made, TDS not done, 194Q, 3 crores will be disallowed. On 3 crores, firm will have to pay. It's a partnership firm. Straight away 30% tax along with surcharge, education cess, etc. When you add it in the income, then again, where any person responsible for deduction of tax, or he fails to deduct whole or any part of the tax, or after deduction fails to deposit the same to central government, that fellow shall be deemed to be an assessee in default. If the deductor fails to deduct tax, he will be liable to pay interest at 1% per month, or part of a month on which he failed to deduct. However, if he fails to deposit TDS, then he shall be liable to pay interest at the rate of 1.5% for every month or part thereof on the amount of tax he failed to deposit to the credit of central government. So 2011 provides that a buyer who fails to deduct TDS is not deemed to be default if the seller has considered such amount while computing income in the return and has paid tax due on the declared income. Buyer will have to obtain a certificate from a chartered accountant in form number 26A from the seller to prevent disallowance and 40IA and submit it electronically. Please understand very carefully now. No, buyer, made a purchase of 10 crores. Okay, sir? Buyer made a purchase of 10 crores. He did not deduct tax under 194Q. Please understand, listen carefully. Buyer made a purchase of 110 crores. He did not deduct or remit TDS of 0.1%. Therefore, law is telling 201 will provide that what? Buyer, who has failed to deduct tax will not be deemed to be in default. If seller has considered such amount, that means buyer is purchasing, seller is selling. Seller has considered such amount that sales, what he has sold to the buyer, he has considered in the sales while computing the income in the return of income, and he has paid tax on due date. Tax due, not on due date, tax paid on due on such declared income. Therefore, buyer will have to obtain certificate, from a chartered account form 26A from the seller to prevent disallowance under 40IA and submit it electronically. No problem. But please see the example. When will the buyer not be deemed to be an assessee in default? If the seller has taken into account that purchase amount while computing his income, paid the tax due on the income declared in the return. It is not that easy. But interest at 1% per month will still be payable from the date of purchase or payment up to date of furnishing of return of income by the seller in accordance with proviso to 201(1)(a) of the Act. For example, please understand, Mr. A is a buyer, my dear friends, is liable to deduct TDS under 194Q. This fellow has made a purchase of 10 crores. His accounts are subject to tax audit also. So this year he made purchases. For example, 15 July, 10 crores. What is the due date? Financial year 21-22. So his due date is what now? It will be 31st of October 22 because this fellow's accounts are subject to tax audit. Understand carefully. Financial 21-22, assessment year 22-23, due date is what? 31st October 22 because this fellow is accounts are subject to tax audit. Now B is the seller, A is a buyer. That B is a seller, for example, whose turnover is not more than 2 crores at all. Suppose he has made here purchases of say 60 lakhs only. But B, the seller, whose turnover is not more than 2 crores. So that fellow is covered under 44AD. Therefore, he will file his ITR. He has the time. B, the seller, has the time to file ITR within 139(4), extended due date up to 31st of 2022. Whereas A has to file up to the 31st October 2022. So therefore, before 31/10/22, B has not filed the return at all. He will tell I am subject to 44 AD and for me due date is 31/12. So therefore, understand carefully. Disallowance will be made in the hands of Mr. A. Suppose the 60 lakhs he has made the purchases. Then disallowance of 30% of purchases in the hands of Mr. A, and it will be allowable in financial year 22/23, and interest will be also be leviable on 201(1)(a) from July 2021. Please, July 2021 till the date of payment of self-assessment tax by that seller B, who is subject to 44 AD, and that fellow has filed the return on or before 31st of December 2022 for 18 months. Interest cannot be avoided. Interest on 201(1)(a). Now, so what shall be the consequence of non-filing of TDS returns? So if there is a delay in filing of TDS return, a late filing fee shall be payable on 234(e), and fee for default in furnishing this TDS TCS statement shall be levied at the rate of 200 rupees per day, during which such failure continues. However, that amount of fee shall not exceed the total amount deductible or collectible as the case may be. And 234(e) fee shall be paid before submission of the belated TDS TCS statement. Again, if a person fails to file TDS return or does not file it by the due date, he shall also be liable to pay penalty under 271H. Penalty under 271H is also levied in case of furnishing of inaccurate information in the TDS returns. Minimum amount of penalty for failure to furnish TDS return or providing inaccurate information is 10,000, which can go up to rupees 1 lakh. Effect of non-furnishing of PAN by deductee seller on rate of tax 206A. It's already there in the statute, sir. So TDS under 206A shall be deducted at higher of the following rates. Rate prescribed in the Act, that is 0.1% specified in 194Q. Rate or rate in force, that is rate mentioned in Finance Act, or the rate of 5% instead of 20% applicable to other TDS sections in Chapter 17B. Now, is there any other compliance required to be done by the seller? Yes. All the transactions where seller has not collected tax. Why? Because buyer has deducted tax under 194Q. He is also required to report by the seller. He has to report that sales in his TCS statement in 27EQ. Now, very important. What is the interplay between section 206C1H and 194Q of the Act? So 206C1H and 194Q, very, very simple, sir. 206C1H applies to the seller, 194Q applies to buyer. Two conditions are there: 10 crores in the preceding previous year, 50 lakhs during the year, the transaction. Now, so the question therefore is, I have given the distinction also. So here, if either buyer is not covered under 194Q or if the buyer fails to deduct TDS under 194Q, then in such cases, seller will have to collect TCS under 206C1H at the time of receipt of sale consideration. Again, if you see here, yes, sir. When and how does seller's responsibility to collect tax arises? Primary onus to deduct tax is on the buyer. We discussed that. However, if the buyer does not deduct tax, onus to collect the tax shifts on the seller. So don't think, buyer didn't deduct tax, but department could still collect the tax from the seller. Seller has to collect the tax when he receives the amount as sale consideration. Although many are putting in the bill also, that is okay. That I don't personally agree, but anyway, for it's easy for you to maintain a tab. But anyway, so at the point of receipt of sales consideration, the seller has to ensure from the buyer that the buyer has deducted the tax. If the buyer has not deducted the tax, seller has to collect the tax. Seller can obtain a declaration from the buyer regarding status of tax deducted at source. Therefore, as 194Q is applicable only from 1st of July, seller has to collect tax on the sale consideration received prior to 1st of July. Now, illustrations on 194Q versus 194 206C1H also have given certain illustrations. And yeah, these are certain illustrations you can go through. Take, for example, a turnover of the buyer is 15 crores, transaction is 6 lakhs. TDS will be 0.1% on 10 lakhs, so 194Q, because amount exceeding 50 lakhs. Again, turnover of the seller is 20 crores, turnover of buyer is 5 crores, transaction value is 1 crore. So buyers is less than 10 crores, therefore seller's turnover more than 20 crores, 206C1H would apply. 0.1% TCS and 0.1% and 261H to be collected by seller, since buyer is not liable to deduct TDS under 194Q. Again, if you take this example on transaction of 75 lakhs during a year, whether 194Q will apply or whether 261H would apply. So turnover of seller is 2 crores, turnover of buyer is 20 crores. You know, only 194Q will apply. Again, turnover of seller is 50 crores, turnover of buyer is only 5 crores. So only TCS under 261H. Suppose the turnover of seller is also 15 crores, buyer is also 15 crores. Then I told you which will take precedence, 194Q. Only TDS under 194Q, no TCS as per second proviso to section 261H. Suppose both the turnover are 8 crores, 8 crores. Nothing will apply, sir. No TDS, no TCS. Now, accounting entries for TCS under 261H and TDS under 194Q. So I have given the accounting entries also. What happens? If the buyer, if he is liable to deduct TDS at the time of booking of purchase transaction, purchase account debit, GST account debit, 2 sundry creditors, 2 TDS payable. Then 2 TDS payable. Next, on payment of TDS on 7th of next month, TDS payable account debit to bank. So all these are there. Now what about interplay between 194O, 206C, 1H and 194Q? So to 194O, you know what is it, sir? 194O, that is the e-commerce participant, e-commerce operator, etc. Now, what is the very simple section? They are telling, you know, there is this Amazon, Flipkart, etc. There is e-commerce operator, there is e-commerce participant. Who is this fellow? E-commerce operator is your Amazon, Flipkart, etc. Now, on that portal, for example, you know, take, you know, Sri Krishna Diamonds and Jewelry. He is the e-commerce participant in that portal. Ultimate purchaser is Prabhakaran. Understand very carefully. E-commerce operator is Amazon. On that Amazon portal, e-commerce participant is Sri Krishna Diamonds and Jewelry. And ultimate buyer, ultimate consumer is our Prabhakaran. So he has purchased goods worth 1 crore on the Amazon. So the law is telling 194O. What is 194O? 1 crore he has made the payment on the Amazon portal. So Amazon portal, in turn, that 1 crore rupees, whatever they have collected, he will pass it on to Sri Krishna Diamonds and Jewelry. So they are telling, and already he will deduct 1%, sir, 194O. At the time when Amazon gives that 1 crore to your Sri Krishna Diamonds and Jewelry, he will deduct 1%. Therefore, they are telling, wherever under T 194O, 261X, 194Q, which is more important, 194O. So where already, you know, purchases he has made of more than 50 lakhs. But the problem here is 194O, Amazon has already deducted the e-commerce operator at the time of, you know, remitting the amount to e-commerce participant, already deducted TDS. They are telling, don't worry. We will not again collect tax under 261H or tell you to deduct tax on 194Q. So here also they are telling, we will not collect double taxation. Again, 261H or 194Q, you know what is applicable. 194Q is also important considering 261H. Now, if you see para 4.9, this is given in the circular, my dear friends. There is no question of any confusion. What are they telling? Cross application of 194O, 261H, 194Q. So, if you see, they are giving the situation here. They are reproducing all the 3 sections. After reading all the 3 sections, I gave you one example. Again, I repeat the example. Amazon is e-commerce operator. Your Prabhakaran is the ultimate consumer, and e-commerce participant is Sri Krishna Diamonds and Jewelry. Now, this circular only is giving the answer. If tax has been deducted by the e-commerce operator on a transaction under 194O, so at the time of remittance of 1 crore to this fellow, to Sri Krishna Diamonds, Amazon would have deducted TDS. Then transaction shall not be subjected to tax deduction under section 194Q of the Act. Though 261H provides exemption from TCS, if the buyer has deducted tax at source on good purchased by him, this exemption would also cover a situation where instead of the buyer, the e-commerce operator, instead of the buyer is what? Prabhakaran. Instead of the buyer, the e-commerce operator, who is e-commerce operator? Amazon, has deducted tax at source on that transaction of sale of goods by seller to buyer through e-commerce operator. Therefore, even 261H will not apply. Then, if the transaction is both within the purview of O as well as Q, then tax is required to be deducted at 194O only. 194O and 194Q, 194O only is important. Similarly, transaction is both within the purview of O as well as 260(1)(h). Then tax is also required to be deducted under section 194 only. The transaction shall come out of the purview of 260(1)(h) after tax has been deducted by e-commerce operator on that transaction. Now, again, it is hereby clarified. This is all circular, sir. I am not giving my personal opinion. Circular is telling primary responsibility is on the e-commerce operator to deduct tax under section 194(o) of the Act. And that responsibility cannot be condoned if the seller has collected tax under subsection 1(h) of section 206C. Please, okay? If a transaction is both within the purview of Q as well as C, 1(h), tax is required to be deducted on 194Q. That we know, 194Q versus 260 1(h). 194Q is important. Now, again, what are they telling? Transaction shall come out of the purview of 260(1)(h) after tax has been deducted to the buyer on the transaction. No problems. Once the buyer is deducted, seller is not required to collect tax on 260(1)(h). Please understand very carefully. Very, very important now in the circular. Why I am going in depth? It will all impact your tax audit reports, my dear friends. You have to be very careful for TDS audit, clause 34 ABC. What is the circular telling now? However, if for any reason tax has been collected by the seller under 260(1)(h), even before the buyer could deduct tax under section 194Q on the same transaction, then such transaction would not be subjected to TDS again by the buyer. So they are giving a concession. This concession is provided to remove difficulty since the tax rate of deduction and collection of are same in section 194Q and 260(1)(h). So they are telling, agreed. The seller's turnover, buyer's turnover more than 10 crores during the preceding previous year. During their transaction is more than 50 lakhs, it is 1 crore. But even before the buyer could deduct the TDS under 194Q, the seller has collected what? Your TCS under 260(1)(h). Then the circular is telling, I am giving you a concession. The buyer need not deduct TDS now. Although, when I compare TDS and TCS, which is more important? TDS under 194Q. But because the seller has already collected 0.1% under 260(1)(h), even before the buyer could deduct the TDS, therefore I am giving you a concession. Okay? Why? Because the rates are same. Here also 0.1%. There also 0.1%. This is not my, sir. This is straight away given in the, this circular. However, if for any reason tax has been collected by the seller on 260(1)(h), even before the buyer could deduct tax under section 194Q on the same transaction, such transaction will not be subjected to TDS again by the buyer. Now 194O, we explained that e-commerce operator to e-commerce participant, etc. Next. That is your 194O. I have just given the, the section also. Now coming to 206AB and 206CCA. Now what about 206AB and 206CCA? Now there are TDS, TCS on all non-filers at higher rates. Now, the government has taken this very seriously and they introduced that, earlier days 206AA, higher rate of TDS for non-furnishing of PAN. That applies to entire TDS, sir. Don't get confused. 206AA is not for 194Q or it's for 261H. It applies to entire Income Tax Act. Provide higher rate for TDS for non-furnishing of PAN. That was already there, 20%. Similarly, 206CC, higher rate of TCS for non-furnishing of PAN. Now, therefore, in this memorandum, what are they telling? It was seen that while these provisions have served their purpose in ensuring or obtaining and furnishing of PAN by various persons, there is a need to have similar provisions to ensure filing of return of income. Now, government is telling, you gave your PAN, you gave your TAN, etc. Why? Else, it would have been deducted at a higher rate. But I want to now ensure filing of return of income by those persons who have suffered a reasonable amount of TDS and TCS. So therefore, explanatory memorandum is telling, therefore, I am now inserting 206AB in the Act as a special provision providing for higher rate of TDS for the non-filers of income tax return, non-filers. Similarly, I am also inserting 206CCA as a special provision for providing for higher rate of TCS for non-filers of income tax return. So for TDS as well as TCS. Again, 206 AB of that would apply on any sum or income or amount paid or payable or credited by any person herein referred to as a specified person. And this section shall not apply where tax is required to be deducted under 192, 192A, 194B, 194BB, 194LBC, 194N. That is your 6 sections, 6 provisions. This 206AB will not apply. Now, who is a specified person? What is the rates of 206AB and CCA? They are telling either higher of the following, twice the rate specified in the relevant provision of the Act, or twice the rate or rates in force, or rate of 5%. So 206AB, twice the rate specified in the Act, twice the rate or rates in force, or twice the rate of 5%. Now, who is a specified person? If you see here, similarly in TCS, they are telling twice the rate specified in relevant provision or rate of 5%. Now, who is specified person? They are telling specified person is a person who has not filed the returns of income for both of the 2 assessment years, relevant to the 2 previous years. Stand today, sir. What is the confusion? Standing today, for example, 12th of July 2021. Now, what is the due date, sir? For assessment year now, 21-22, due date is 31st July example. So therefore, this year's due date is still not over. Therefore, I can file return for 21-22. Which 2 years I have to see? Assessment year 2021, assessment year 1920, financial year 1920, financial year, 18-19, that is assessment year 1920, 2021. So last 2 years returns only I have to see whether returns are filed or not filed. Even if return is filed for even 1 year, my dear friend, you will not be a specified person. Again, what should be the TDS or TCS claimed by the specified person? It should be more than 50,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees at least for both TDS and TCS together. So specified person is a person who has not filed the return for the 2 assessment years relevant to 2 previous years, which are immediately before the previous year, in which tax is required to be deducted or collected as the case may be. I am required to deduct tax now, 15 July. So which 2 previous years? Forget this year. See last 2 years. Assessment year 2021, assessment year 1920. Further, time limit for filing tax return or subsection 1 of 139 has expired for both these assessment years. All India, I am receiving phone calls, sir. All India confusion. Sir, return should have been filed within the due date. Absolutely no, sir. Law section is only telling due date is expired. That's all. If you have filed the returns within the belated return time period also, still, my dear friend, both the returns are filed. The 206 AB provision is not applicable. It only says time limit for filing tax return subsection 1 of 139 has expired for both these assessment years. Now, another condition is I told you, aggregate of TDS or TCS as per their 26 years. Who? Your specified person's 26 years. Aggregate of TDS and TCS is 50,000 or more in each of the 2 previous years. That means cumulatively condition to be specified. 2 years returns not filed. In each of the 2 years, aggregate of TDS and TCS by whom to be claimed? By the specified person as per its form 26 years is at least 50,000 or more than 50,000. Suppose in 1 year it is only 45,000. Condition not fulfilled, sir. Condition not fulfilled, 206 AB not applicable. Who is that specified person? It will not include a non-resident who does not have a permanent establishment in India. Now, 206 AB we discussed. This is the bare section of the Act, sir. And then, we will discuss the, this FAQs also quickly, complete it, then take up all the question and answers. Now, when is this section made applicable? 206 AB. Same thing, sir. Finance Act 2021 with effect from 1st of July. Therefore, compliance of this section will become mandatory with effect from 1st of July. Is 206 AB applicable for all payments that are subject to TDS under 194C, J, I, Q, etc.? Yes, except for your specific carve-outs. Yes, except for specific carve-outs provided in 206 AB, it is applicable for all other nature of payments under different provisions of 17B, which require tax deduction at source. Carve-outs are as follows. It will not apply to 192 TDS on salary, 192A TDS on withdrawal from EPF, does not apply to 194B TDS on winnings from lotteries, crossword puzzles, etc. 194BB TDS on winnings from race horses, 194 LBC TDS on income in respect of investment in securitization trust, 194N TDS on cash withdrawal, etc. Why? Already said that 192 TDS on salary, EPF, winnings from horse races, their lottery is already 30% only, no? EPF salary, etc. Already high rate. Anyway, Now, what is the applicability of 206AB? Where the payment to a particular vendor is not crossing the minimum threshold provided under respective sections of Chapter 17B. So, where payment is not crossing minimum threshold, for example, 194J, 30,000, etc. Then TDS under various sections of 17B, then provisions of AB would not be applicable. Now, 206AB starts with a non-obstant clause. That means what? Non-obstant clause, it overrides all the provisions of the Act. Then, what would be the applicable rate of TDS where section 206AB is triggered? So, where section 206AB is triggered, tax shall be deducted at higher of the following rates, twice the rate specified in relevant provision of the Act, twice the rate or rates in force, or 5%. Now, for example, take 194J, normal rate, 10%, twice will become 20%, and 5% rate, applicable rate, whichever is higher. So 10, 25, it is 20%. Again, 194C, normal is 2%, twice the rate becomes 4% or 5%. So it is 5%. Again, 194Q, it is 0.1% are normal, twice it became 0.2 or 5%. So it is 5%. So please understand, 5%, 206AB, 194J, your COVID time, it was 7.5, that twice became 5 and 5% and etc. And the applicable rate is 15. Your twice is 15, that is. That is why it is applicable rate is 15. However, where both provisions of this section and section 206A are applicable, please understand carefully. First, find out the rate as per 206AB. Compare with 206A. Suppose that fellow has not given PAN or TAN. There it is 20%. Compare both, then take the higher rate. 206A is what? For furnishing of PAN where TDS is deductible, then tax shall be deducted to the rate provided in this section or in 206A, whichever is higher. Now, what is the threshold given from a tax deductor standpoint for applicability of this section? All types of debtors, irrespective of any threshold in terms of expenses or turnover, etc. Now, which years are relevant for financial year 21-22 based on definition of specified person? We discussed which years are relevant. I told you. Financial year 18-19, financial year 19-20, assessment year 19-20, assessment year 20-21. Now, once the time limit for filing the income tax return expires for financial year 2021, then the relevant previous years would be financial year 19-20 and financial year 20-21. What happens if the tax deductee has filed the tax return for one of the years in the applicable 2 previous years? I told you, you have to fulfill the 2 conditions. 2 years return should not be filed. And in the 2 years, the aggregate of TDS and TCS should be 50,000 and above. Suppose for 1 year is telling, you have filed the return. Then such deductee would not be treated as a specified person, since the definition of specified person is triggered only when the deductee has not filed the tax return for both the 2 assessment years. Given this, technically 206AB should not be applicable but the tax return is not filed for one of the 2 years. Now this confusion. What happens if the tax deductee has filed the tax return after the due date of filing under 139(1)? Don't get confused. Tax deductee will be treated as a specified person where he has not filed the returns for both the applicable previous years and time under 139(1) has expired. For example, 2021, financial year 19-20, it was extended, my dear friend, up to 31st of May 21. As such, the section does not require that the tax deductee should have filed the tax return within the due date. Nowhere it says the return should have been filed within the due date. It is only what is it telling? Time under 139(1) is expired. So time that expired on 31st May 2021. So it appears that even if the deductee has filed the tax return after the due date of filing the return under 139(1), the deductor should not be required to apply the provisions of 206AB. In such cases, since the requirement of filing tax return has been met by tax deductee, I filed the return, sir. I have filed my return. Basically, why this section is discouraged? You have filed the return. I don't want you to, apply 206AB. Why this section is brought in? The law is telling I want the compliances more. I want all the deductors, deductees, etc. to file the return of income. You have filed the return, even if you have filed within the belated time period, with your interest, etc. you would have paid. I have no problem. So therefore, you have filed the return. I have no problem. I will not, trigger 206AB will not be triggered in my humble opinion. Now, what happens if the tax deductee is not liable to file the tax returns under the provisions of the Act, and therefore he has not filed the returns for applicable previous years? So 206AB does not provide any exemption in such cases. Please understand. However, the tax deductors can keep in mind the threshold of INR 50,000 of TDS while determining the applicability of 206AB in case of such deductees. Now, last three questions, my dear friends. Would the compliance be necessary if the tax deduction done by the deductor is less than INR 50,000 in case of any particular deductee for both the applicable previous years? Tax deductee will be treated as a specified person only if the aggregate of TDS and TCS in his case is INR 50,000 or more in each of the two previous years. Please. Therefore, the aggregate of TDS and TCS should be calculated from the perspective of all the TDS, TCS available to the tax deductee concerned, as may be reflected in his Form 26AS, and not from the perspective of the quantum of TDS, TCS made by the subject tax deductor. Please, whatever is reflected in his Form 26AS. What happens if the TDS is less than INR 50,000 in one of the two applicable previous years and the tax deductee has not filed the tax returns for both the applicable previous years? In such a scenario, deductee should not be treated as specified person, since the section requires the aggregate of TDS and TCS to be INR 50,000 or more in each of the applicable previous years. The last question: is there any relaxation for non-residents who are subject to TDS and 195? Yes, I told you, non-resident who does not have a P in India is outside the purview of applicability of 206AB. Now the question, even the circular has come on 21st of June 21. What are they telling? They are telling, sir, how do I know, sir? I am the buyer. You are the seller. How do the buyer know that, that 206AB will be applicable? How do I know? Should I have to take a declaration? All over India, they are calling me, they are asking doubts, there are confusion. They are telling, let me ask the financial statements. Let me ask the 26 years. Let me ask ITRV. Sorry, sir. These are all confidential documents and nobody is going to share, sir. Please don't give such suggestion also. And no seller will share with the buyer, sir. Why should he share? So therefore, what to do? Very simple, sir. Please go on the portal. As of now, the portal may not be working that beautifully, but wait and watch. Wait for a month or so. Things would crystallize. All technical cliches will be resolved. And I am telling you, this 206AB, you take the PAN. Please only take the PAN of the seller. You log in there, you please put the PAN, apply that provisions of 206AB on that portal. You know what will happen? Just taking the PAN, my dear friends, you register that PAN you put it, immediately details will come. Date of allotment of PAN, date will also come. Date of allotment of PAN, that seller was allotted, say, 25 years back. PAN allotted on, say, 16/4/1998. That date will come. Again, they will tell whether that PAN is linked to Aadhaar, even that detail will come. Again, next column, they will tell whether 206AB applicable to the seller. They will also give the two due dates, last two dates for having filed the return. If that fellow has filed the return, then I have to deduct tax at normal rates only 0.1%, etc. I need not deduct tax at a higher rate of 5%, etc. Whichever is higher, twice the rate or 5%, etc. What are they telling? Rates or rate in force? That is wrong, because 30% rates in force, double the rate is 60%. Quietly in that circular, they removed that and they are only telling 206AB, twice the rate or 5%, whichever is high. For example, now in the 206AB, the portal only will tell whether this fellow is a specified person. They will give you the date, sir. Even the date of filing the return by the seller will be available in the portal. Why do you want to break your head asking their ITRB, asking their financial statement, asking their 26 years? Oh, I want to see that 50,000 TDS, TCS. Everything will be reflected in portal. And how many? What bulk search can you do? 10,000 PAN, my dear friends, you can bulk search at a time. 10,000 PAN. So the portal, when it starts working fully, all these details will be applicable. Please do not worry. However, before making the deduction, you have to compulsorily, mandatorily register that PAN. This year, if you do, suppose you have got 100 suppliers. So that 100 PAN, when you put, my dear friends, don't worry. Next year also that 100 PAN will be already registered. It will put there. You can only check bulk search at a time. 10,000 PAN can be searched. For example, you put that registered today, it will be registered, say, by one day, 4 hours, 6 hours, etc. based on that working of the portal. So one day it is registered, and next day immediately you can see So 100 pans are already fed. Next year you have got 50 extra. You need to feed only that 50 more pan. The database is ready. Every year, they will tell you, this is what it is, sir. This is all the pan and whether 206 AB is applicable. If at all the portal says yes there, that column will come. If they say yes, you please go ahead and deduct at a higher rate. Else, you need not worry. You need not even ask them anything. Just to take the pan, that's all. So, I have given this compliance check for 206 AB and 206 AA, CCA. Same thing, ditto for TCS. Quick reference guide version 1. I have given this fully here. There are 50 slides for your benefit. How, how to log in and etc. and how to register, etc. So at the end, you will get all the results. You need not worry at all. This is all given in the circular of the department itself. Please see here. Upload date, financial year, request ID, records, username Kusum Lata, status downloaded, last activity date, compliance check for section 206 AB and CCA. It will come like this. So here, see how beautiful details are given. Now, PAN, this 7, name, all that is removed. PAN allotment date, PAN Aadhaar link, not specified person. Portal itself is telling, sir, this is taken from the portal itself. No, yes, no, no, yes, no. So wherever it is yes, you have to deduct at a higher rate because the portal itself is telling you are a specified person, sir. Okay. Now, we move forward. 206A, CCA, same, sir. Ditto, what we discussed for your 206 AB will also apply to 206 CCA. That was TDS and this is TCS. Same thing. This is also for non-filers of income tax return. So higher of rate to be collected, higher of the following two rates, namely rate twice the rate specified in the provision of the Act or rate of 5%. If the provisions of 206 CC is applicable to a specified person where there is no TCS, there it was 206 AA. In addition to provision of the section, tax shall be collected rate of higher rate of the two rates provided in the section and 206 CC, etc. Now, these are all the press release on 25th June, where extension of timelines of compliances because of this COVID. Yes, sir. Thank you very much for a patient hearing. I think we can go for question and answers now.
I now request the members to unmute themselves and ask the questions.
Shall we go into this one, man? First, your chat box.
Yes, sir.
Chat box. Let me take the questions, and then we will. You can unmute everybody, and we can ask. So, first question is, yes. Mr. Thiruvachakan. However, we pay GST on advance. So, accordingly, shall we deduct? What? So, first question, sir, my dear sir, in advance generally, if you pay GST, if you are able to clearly bifurcate among the advance and GST, if it is visible from the bill, then don't worry, you can deduct only on the advance portion, not on the GST portion. Else, normally when advance is given to a seller, when the buyer gives advance, because there is no bill raised, on the entire advance, you need to deduct 194Q at 0.1%. Second question asked by Mr. Thiruvachagan only, what if due to purchase returns, the criteria falls below 50 lakhs? Should we leave it as it is? Sir, need not worry. What are they telling? What about purchase returns? They are telling, in case there is a purchase returns and then similar goods, similar goods, else he gives you a refund, or you don't take the refund and similar goods you take same quantity and same type of purchases, then also you need not deduct. Why? At the time of purchase also you have already deducted TDS, or is telling you please adjust it in the next bill. Don't worry. Kindly share the material, Mr. Karthikeyan. We will share. Don't worry, sir. Raghavendran. If TDS is not deducted under 194Q on purchase of capital goods, how the disallowance takes place? Very beautiful question, sir. Very interesting. He's telling, capital goods you have purchased and, your turnover is more than 10 crores in the preceding year. This year, the transaction is more than 50 lakhs. So, there is a purchase of your capital, not deducted 194Q on purchase of capital goods. How the disallowance takes place, particularly in respect of depreciation on such capital goods and interest on borrowals for the same. Nobody is bothered, sir. For the purpose of TDS, they are telling, I do not distinguish between capital expenditure and revenue expenditure. So TDS is also applicable even on capital goods because the law is crystal clear. Buyer, who is a buyer is a resident in the previous year, turnover, gross sales, your gross receipts sales from the business exceeds more than 10 crores and purchases you make Purchases, they do not say, they only say purchases, that's all. They do not say that purchases should be of capital goods or revenue goods or from the business. Section does not stretch further. So I cannot put, I cannot stretch the section there. I think we have completed this chat box. Now you can unmute the participants. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Members?
Yes, sir.
Members
If anybody
having
there
any,
on any previous. Or if there are no questions, then we can send you the PPT, sir. You can just circulate among the members. No problem.
yes, sir. Sir, how about purchases from government, sir?
Sir,
Whether
if the
notification of
government, they have given, they will come out now shortly.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, notification not yet come. It's only circular. They are telling from the government. As and when notified from RBI, then no, you need not deduct TDS.
Okay. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can. I think there is no more questions from the members.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So the session was so explanative and there was many examples. Thank you, sir. I now request Pondicherry branch chairman to render vote of thanks.
Thank you, madam. Respected speaker of the day, CA Naveen Kairwal, respected chairman of Salem branch of SIRC of ICA, CA Saranya, respected chairman of Vellore branch, CA Rajshekharan, secretary of Salem branch, CA V Pushpalata, and other office bearers of the Salem branch, secretary of Vellore branch, CA P Tanigi Velan, and other office bearers of Vellore branch, secretary of Pondicherry branch, CA Manju Boshne, and other office bearers of the Pondicherry branch, office bearers of Pondicherry, Salem, and Vellore branches, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's my privilege to deliver the vote of thanks for this seminar on demystifying TDS and TCS under section 194Q, 206AB and 206 CCA. We are thankful to the speaker CA Naveen Kairwal sir for his presentation on TDS under section 194Q vis-a-vis TCS under section 206 CIH, which is very, very useful for discharging our compliance duties with regard to TDS and TCS applications of our clients. His presentation also brought out all the nuances of the section and exposed the underlying catches by reading between the lines. We are sure that his detailed insight into the topic with illustrative cases and FAQ will enable the members to comply with their compliance responsibility in totality and correctly. Sir, your presentation also highlighted the interplay between 194Q and 206 CIH and applicability of section 206 AB and 206 CCA and clear the ambiguity between application of different sections. On behalf of Pondicherry, Salem, and Vellore branch of SIRC of ICI, I thank the speaker CA Naveen Kairwal sir for being here with us virtually this evening and sharing his presentation and addressing the members. We thank the chairman and office bearers of Salem and Vellore branches for providing us the opportunity of hosting this seminar jointly. We also thank the Salem branch for the Zoom platform provided by them for jointly hosting this seminar. I thank all the members, including members of Pondicherry, Salem, and Vellore branch for their interactive participation and their virtual presence throughout the program. We are overwhelmed by the members' overwhelming registration and support for this program. The seminar would not have been a success without your participation and encouragement. I thank staff members of all the branches for ensuring smooth conduct of the program with their coordinated efforts and arrangements. Thanks once again to one and all. Thank you, speaker sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, to all three chairmen, all three branches.
Sir, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Rajesh. Thank you, madam. Thank you. Tomorrow, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, you can share the PPT also, sir.
Yeah. Tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Rajshekharan, sir.
Thank you, Prabhakaran, sir. Thank you, madam.
Mhm.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank you.
Prabhakaran sir, Rajshekhar sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Thank you
all.
so much, madam.
Okay.